7 sinister encounters with haunting strangers, hidden in the walls, exposed secrets that terrify. Sarah's heart raced as night fell in Cedar Grove, New Jersey. The once bustling suburban life she treasured now felt like a distant memory. The eerie stillness of the house clawed at her soul while her 2 young children slept, their innocent faces blissfully unaware of the creeping dread that stalked the shadows. Every floorboard creaked like whispers circling in her mind, heights of paranoia gnawing at her sanity. Then there was Mr. Holloway, the man next door who watched her without shame, his eyes like deep, hollow wells that never stopped peering into her home. Neighbors warned of a dark history, of secrets that slithered beneath his skin, adding weight to her discomfort. Once, she caught him peering through the blinds, a chilling smile cracking his face. But it was on a stormy night that the true terror unveiled itself. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the flickering shadows skimming the living room walls. A cold sweat gripped her, curling around her throat like a serpent. It felt like someone or something was lurking just out of sight, teetering between dimensions. Her thoughts spiraled, chasing the specters of fear that gripped her tightly. With a trembling hand, she opened the basement door, her heart thundering. What she discovered sent her reeling. Hidden passageways lined with grotesque memorabilia, a child's crumpled drawing pinned to the wall with a rusty nail. It was a fragment of a life long past, a possession left behind. Panic surged through her, electrifying her limbs. She darted upstairs, the air thickening like a pressure cooker, and caught sight of a note slipped under the door. "Keep them safe or they will pay." Before she could catch her breath, a strangled scream threatened to escape her lips. Fear wrapped around her like a shroud, pushing her towards the local police station. "You don't understand," she gasped, her words tumbling over each other. But the officer leaned back in his chair, unfazed. "Just a rough patch. Nothing to worry about," he replied, his indifference a knife to her heart. Alone, she returned home, the weight of her solitude amplifying the unsettling vibrations of the night. She had to face Mr. Holloway. The confrontation loomed like a storm. As she stood before him, his sickly sweet facade cracked. "The house decides who is worthy of family," he murmured. Smirking, his shadows lurked behind him, dancing in the candlelight. The stories began stitching themselves together in her mind, a guardian spirit twisted into something malignant, punishing those who faltered in their protection. She felt the walls whisper, wrapping around her, drowning her in their secrets. Every flicker of the lights felt like a countdown. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Her mind raced. How deep did the evil run in Cedar Grove? As shadows lengthened, the walls closed in tighter. A desperate choice lay ahead. Could she safeguard her children from a power that felt so ancient, so disturbingly alive? And already, the darkness had begun to swallow their screams. The clock ticked loudly in the heavy silence of the house, each second hammering against Sarah's skull. Darkness wrapped around her, suffocating and oppressive. She looked down the hallway, feeling the shadows slither and twist as if they were alive, crawling closer to her, grasping at her ankles. She had to act before it was too late. Fighting back rising hysteria, she crept towards her children's room. They stirred slightly, their peaceful faces a stark contrast to the chaos swirling in her mind. But were they truly safe? Could she keep them from harm? The note had burned the words into her brain, each syllable echoing like a chant. "Keep them safe, or they will pay." The intensity of her dread clawed at her insides, and her breath became shallow suddenly. A scratching sound sliced through the silence. It came from the basement, a relentless, agonizing scraping that clawed at her. She froze, heart pounding, every muscle tensed. What could be lurking down there? The thought of confronting whatever hid in the depths shot icy pins of fear through her veins. Then she remembered the drawing, the child's drawing, battered and stained. Had that child, lost to time, once faced what she now endured? Was their fate tied to hers? A thread of desperation wove through her resolve. She wouldn't let her children fall prey to the same fate. Gathering her strength, she tiptoed to the basement door, heart racing wildly in her chest like a caged animal. The scratching intensified as she placed her hand on the cold metal knob, each heartbeat resonating in her ears like a warning. With a deep breath, she twisted the knob and pulled the door open. The air hit her like a wall of ice. A musty odor mingled with damp earth, creeping into her lungs as she hesitated on the threshold. A flickering light bulb hung precariously overhead, casting erratic shadows that danced grotesquely on the walls. The scratching had stopped, now replaced by an unsettling silence that echoed through the basement. Pushing forward, determination outweighing the dread, she descended the stairs, each creak of the wood beneath her feet amplifying her fear. The staircase spiraled down into a depth that felt endless, and the air grew heavier, thick with tension. The walls seemed to close in, whispering secrets she could barely comprehend to the bottom. The narrow space opened into a dimly lit room, its corners cloaked in darkness. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as her eyes adjusted. What she saw made her knees weak. Scattered along the floor were more drawings, scribbled over and neglected, cracked toys lurking in the shadows, remnants of innocent childhood swallowed by the house. Then, from the corner of her eye, she noticed movement. It was faint but unmistakable. A figure shifted just outside the light's reach. A child. A translucent silhouette, caught between reality and something more sinister. Sarah's heart raced. She felt the familiar gnaw of fear scramble her thoughts. But a new impulse ignited within her. She couldn't turn away. "Who are you?" she whispered, almost afraid to disturb the fragile air around her. The child's eyes, hollow and dark, locked onto hers, and in that moment, Sarah understood. This was not just a spirit of the forgotten. This was a ward, a protector twisted into something dark, now guiding her towards an unthinkable truth. Suddenly, a clattering echoed from above, shattering the fragile atmosphere. Panic surged through her body. She turned back towards the stairs, the shadows shifting menacingly behind her, closing in like predators eager for their prey. "No!" she screamed, her voice a plea and a declaration. As she raced up the stairs, the whispers reached a fever pitch, clawing at her sanity. The last few steps crumbled under the heavy presence she felt behind her, pushing her relentlessly forward. She burst through the door and stumbled into the hall, realizing then that the walls were not just watching, they were hungry. With children asleep and a history threatening to resurface, every choice from here on would determine whether she could keep them safe. And she was running out of time. What awaited her in that darkness? The walls whispered secrets she couldn't yet comprehend. Secrets that could turn her very own home into a tomb. She slammed the basement door behind her. A final echo ricocheted in the silence, leaving the chilling thought hanging in the air. Who would pay, and at what cost? Panic clawed at Sarah's throat as she bolted down the hallway, heart hammering against her ribcage. The air thickened with an urgency that felt suffocating. Her children's safety was at the forefront of her mind, yet a shadow, deep and looming, hovered just behind her thoughts. She reached the doorway of her children's room, the dim light filtering in through the curtains, dancing like specters in the stillness. Their innocent faces lay cradled against pillows, unaware of the darkness creeping through the hallways. Steeling herself, Sarah stepped back into their sanctuary, ready to protect them from anything that might intrude. But as she looked around, the heaviness of the house seeped into her bones. A sudden realization gripped her. The darkness wasn't just from the basement. It thrummed through the walls, penetrating every corner of their home. She couldn't help but feel it was alive, hungry, as if it harbored the whispers of the past. The scratching had returned, relentless, a reminder of what lay beneath. She knew she had to confront it. A part of her craved to understand the specter of the drawing she'd seen, the child caught in trauma, lost and twisted within these very walls. That child was a warning, but a warning of what? As she turned on her heel, A chill swept past her like a breeze from the grave. It whispered her name, soft and haunting, so close it tingled against her skin. Sarah? Come. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't her imagination. The walls answered her, and she couldn't shake the inability to fight the pull they exerted. Sarah steeled her mind as she stepped out of the children's room. The shadows, once mere shapes, now pulsed, twisting into forms that reached out with ghostly fingers. She pressed a palm against the wall, feeling the vibrations thrumming through the plaster, the fear intertwining with something she could only describe as curiosity. Let them sleep. A voice hissed from the walls, a sound so familiar it disturbed her. They don't know what's to come. But you must learn. Her breath hitched, mind racing. What was this force trying to tell her? The weight of its intention pulled at her like a tether, fraying strands of her sanity. Fighting back a flood of emotions, she took the long hallway back towards the basement door, its threshold dark and ominous, as if guarding the secrets beneath with white-knuckled determination. She gripped the knob, turning it slowly, listening for signs of life that may lurk below. The house was silent, too silent. A place stretched thin on the brink of an unseen horror. A resonating thud echoed in her chest as she pushed open the door. Descending once again, the oppressive air pressed against her, heavy like a funeral shroud. Each step creaked in protest, as if the house itself pleaded with her to return. Yet forward she went, drawn towards the drawings that had once called out to her. As she reached the dimly lit room, a violent gust blew past, startling her as all the drawings fluttered against the walls, screaming silently their truths. Shapes shifted among the chaotic scrawl, shadows bending and stretching in a way that was almost sentient. And then, she understood. They weren't just drawings. They were messages desperate to break free, stories of those who had suffered beneath this roof, trapped by time and darkness. A whisper broke through, a low growl. You cannot leave until you know the truth. Fingers trembling, she reached for a crumpled piece of paper, its edges worn, smeared with ages of despair. Her heart raced as she unfolded it, eyes scanning the faded ink. The words burned into her mind. There is a price for those who trespass. The walls shuddered, and the house trembled as if agreeing with the warning. In that moment, she realized this was only the beginning. A distant wail echoed through the basement, rising in pitch, beckoning her with a bitter promise of revelation. What lay beyond the thin veil of the known? What price was she willing to pay to save her children from the fate of those before them? Terror rooted her in place as the shadows coalesced into forms, eager to unveil the secrets of the house. The truth was coming, and it wouldn't wait. Are you ready to face what's hidden behind the darkness? A voice crooned, teasing and taunting, an invitation she could not refuse. The air crackled with tension, a tangible charge that crackled across Sarah's skin as she faced the shadows that twisted and flickered in the corners of the dim room. The whispers grew louder, the unfamiliar voice enticing her, promising knowledge wrapped in dread. What is the price? She demanded, her voice barely above a whisper, trembling with fear. Knowledge comes at a cost, the voice replied, tinged with a mocking lilt. The walls seemed to lean closer, as if eavesdropping on their exchange. They claimed her attention, begging her to understand as they surged with the weight of memories trapped inside. The wail echoed again, sharper this time, rising and falling like a mournful lament. It twisted around her, suffocating. But she stepped further inside, drawn by a surreal magnetism. She could almost see outlines of faces etched into the plaster, the forgotten, the lost. As if sensing her realization, the shadows danced faster, their movements becoming frenetic. Do you seek the child? The whisper coiled through the air, weaving around her like a sinister thread. The one who knows your pain? Without answering, Sarah felt compelled to find the truth behind those drawings. They spoke of despair and hope, of lives frozen in anguish within the fabric of her home. She reached for another piece of paper, trembling fingers brushing against cold, rough surfaces. As she unfolded it, a chill crept down her spine, a child's drawing, but twisted, broken. It was the same anguished face, The same fear reflected back at her. Not all stories are meant to be told. The voice hissed, laced with venom. But you are a trespasser. Her breath caught in her throat. I just want to keep my children safe, she cried, her voice cracking, echoing off the oppressive walls. The laughter that followed was a hiss, a sharp sound that fit the ambience like jagged glass. And you will if you choose wisely. Sarah's heart raced as the shadows enveloped her, pulling her into their grasp, but a flicker of defiance ignited within. Who are you? She demanded, resolute against the curtain of darkness. An echo. Of those who suffered before you came the soft reply. An echo that will live on through your reckoning. The shadow shapes stirred, circling her like wolves closing in on their prey, watching and waiting. The basement trembled, the house itself resonating with the volatility of its haunted history. Every breath she took felt heavy, laced with the sorrow that filled the space, and she knew she stood on the precipice of something terrible. Tell me what you know. I have to save them, she implored, desperation slicing through her as she thought of her children asleep just above, blissfully unaware of the storm that raged below. Find the key. The one who holds the memories, the whisper turned into a desperate plea. Or be consumed by them. A faint light flickered ahead, drawing her gaze. Was it hope or illusion? Instinct propelled her forward, each step echoing in the vast chasm beneath the home. The dim illumination beckoned her, an orb floating in the dense dark, pulsing with something almost warm. Yet as she advanced, the sinister laughter swirled around her, growing louder, growing darker, reverberating through her bones. What will you sacrifice for the ones you love? It taunted, her pulse quickened. She didn't know what kind of price was waiting, but the shadows thickened, and a grip cold and unyielding suddenly clamped onto her wrist. Panic surged in her chest as she forced herself to turn, to break free, but the shadows were relentless, pulling her closer, dragging her into their realm where past horrors lay like forgotten nightmares. And then, amidst the chaos, she heard it again, the wail rising into a crescendo, not just a sound but a plea, a desperate call as it pierced through the darkness. What lay behind that light? What truths could she uncover, and at what cost? Sarah, are you willing to pay the price? With that final question hanging in the air, confusion and dread churned inside her. She had to decide, to take the leap into the unknown. Would she embrace the darkness to save her family, or risk losing them all? With the shadows pulling her deeper, she could either run or confront the abyss ahead. The next moment would define her fate. Which path would she choose, and what lurked just beyond the veil? The light pulsed, a beckoning heartbeat in the chaotic void. Sarah hesitated, torn between the clutches of the shadows and the fragile glow ahead. Could this light hold the answer she desperately sought, or was it simply a gateway to deeper horrors? Trust the darkness. The whispers slithered through her mind, dripping with malice. It knows your heart, it knows your fears. She couldn't shake the feeling that the walls had ears. They seemed alive, every creak and groan echoing her own mounting dread. The grip on her wrist tightened, pulling her toward the unseen. Let go, she screamed, yanking her arm, but it was futile. The shadows pressed closer, their dark tendrils curling around her throat, squeezing like a vice. Panic enveloped her as she fought to breathe, the temperature dropping rapidly, a freezing chill creeping down her spine. She blinked, allowing the light to seep into her vision. It radiated warmth, and for a brief moment, a sense of calm washed over her. The wailing shifted to a soft sob, muffled yet palpable. The shadows recoiled in the presence of this pure light, momentarily disengaging their suffocating grip. Help me, a smaller voice cried, the sound so familiar it sent shivers down Sarah's spine. It was like hearing her own child calling out, but distorted, shadowed. Is that you? She gasped, stepping toward the light with trembling resolve. The darkness hissed, a warning laced with rage. You dare disturb the balance, I'll disturb it all I want. Sarah shouted defiantly. I'm not afraid of you. I won't let you take my family. The orb of light flickered fiercely in response, revealing a small, luminous figure curled in the corner of the room. It was a child, her child, or something like her shimmering in the eerie glow. But the child's face was so twisted with sorrow, so eerily familiar, that dread surged anew. Mommy, the figure reached out, a hand extending in a silent plea. But before Sarah could react, a sudden tremor shook the room, rattling the very foundations. Shadows erupted around her as if enraged by her defiance. A cacophony of whispers drowning out even the child's desperate call. "Join us," they cried. "You cannot fight what is written." Heart racing, Sarah's instincts kicked in. She lunged forward, nearing the vulnerable silhouette. Determination coursed through her veins, fueled by her love. "I'm coming," she shouted, diving for the glowing form. Just as she was about to grasp the child's hand, the shadows surged back, their smothering darkness reasserting its hold. Fingers of gloom snaked around her waist and limbs, pulling her into a vortex of grief and despair. "No!" she screamed, the light fading from her grasp. She fought desperately, adrenaline surging, each heartbeat hammering in her ears. But the whispers grew louder, drowning out her thoughts. "You belong to us." With a final thrust, she broke free from their grip, tumbling into the light. The raw energy enveloped her like a protective mantle, pushing back against the encroaching shadows. In that moment, she glimpsed the child's face, eyes wide with terror and yet filled with hope. "I know you," she shouted, recognizing not just familiarity, but the essence of innocence lost. "You need me." The shadows hissed, recoiling from the brilliance, their murmur now laced with fear. With newfound determination, Sarah pressed deeper into the light, feeling it pulse with strength, life. Suddenly, the space shook wildly as if the house itself was coming apart at the seams. The child knows came the whispers, echoing her realization in a chorus of dread. "And now you both must pay." In that moment of clarity, a truth dawned on her, sharp and undeniable. It was not just about saving her family. It was about unraveling the entire history buried within the very walls of her home. With one final surge, she grasped the figure's hand. The shadows lunged, twisting back as if afraid of what might come next. "What happens now?" Sarah breathed, her heart pounding as she faced the light. "Now." The voice washed over her like a soothing caress. "Now we reveal the truth, together." As the shadows convulsed, Sarah could feel the weight of their history being unearthed. A tide of whispers prepared to expose every dark secret that once dwelled within her home. But what awaited them both in the uncharted depths of revelation? What horrors lay behind the truth? The air thickened with anticipation. The darkness gathered, eyes watching from every crevice, ready to strike. "Prepare yourself, Sarah," the voice warned. "We are just beginning." The brilliance of the light intensified, flooding the cramped space and momentarily blinding Sarah. As the shadows recoiled, she felt the gravity of the moment shift. In a heartbeat, the child's hand felt warm against her skin, anchoring her to whatever fragile hope resided in this chaos. "Hold on tight," the voice urged, layered with a strange combination of fear and warmth. Sarah clutched the child's hand, feeling its stark contrast against the icy darkness surrounding them. Without warning, the light exploded like a firework, scattering the shadows in all directions. She gasped as the brightness shone through, illuminating the walls that once felt so alive and oppressive. But what she saw sent waves of nausea rippling through her. Beneath the wallpaper, figures writhed and twisted, faces contorted in agony, mouths open in silent screams. Their sinuous forms were pressed into the very fabric of her home, imprinted with echoes of past torment. Shock gripped Sarah as she stumbled backward, the child's grip tightening around her. "What are they?" she whimpered, fear clawing at her throat. "They are the shadows you've ignored, the whispers you've silenced," came the reply, a strange resonance lacing its tone. "The price of their silence is suffocating sorrow. But now they speak." As if responding to her curiosity, the figures began to unfurl, claiming the space with ghostly limbs that flickered like dying embers. They moaned a chorus of fragmented memories oozing into the air like a thick fog. The sobs echoed through her mind, creating a dissonance she could almost taste. I didn't mean to disturb you. I just wanted my family back. Sarah cried over the rising cacophony, desperation spilling from her voice. The luminous figure pressed closer. You must listen, Mommy. The truth must be known. With a single flutter, the scene distorted, warping into a nightmarish tableau. Dark memories unraveling, friends turned foe. Laughter replaced by cries, warmth twisted into a chilling embrace. Each image was a thread connecting her to a web of despair. Her home, once a sanctuary, was a tomb of lost souls, haunted by their own inability to escape. Heart pounding, Sarah turned back to the vibrant glow. What do you want from me? The child looked up, eyes brimming with understanding and fear. Your courage to face what lies behind, to confront the darkness that feasts upon the forgotten. The whispers swelled, dark excitement echoing in the corners of the room. You're not alone in this, Sarah, embrace us. We can merge, share burdens, rewrite the story that binds us. Become part of the shadows. No, she screamed, the horror of their temptation slamming into her. She shook her head violently, retching against the sound of their promises. That's not what family is. I refuse. But as she fought, the shadows seemed to pulse with renewed vigor. The child's hand tightened painfully, warmth threatened by the encroaching chill. Yes, fight it, the whispers hissed in delight. But the child is bound to this curse, and every denial draws her deeper into despair. Fear sliced through Sarah as realization struck her. If she pushed back now, would it cost her the child? Would she doom them both to the shadows forever? A thunderous crash erupted around her, dust pluming like smoke from an explosion. The walls trembled, and the figures seethed, hungry for resolution. What happens now, Sarah? They mocked, their voices tumbling like stones down a dark well. The child's grip loosened slightly. Find the truth, Mommy. Our moments are numbered. Desperation clawed at Sarah. She needed answers, but at what cost? Help us, the whispers murmured, growing faint, an invitation to cross an unseen line. Unlock what you fear the most, and you shall find peace. Sarah inhaled sharply, trembling. What was hidden could shatter them or heal them. Either way, she stood on the precipice of a terrifying choice. And as the shadows closed in, a single question lingered in the air, a haunting echo of her deepest fears. What if truth was worse than the darkness? The air grew thick with despair, wrapping tight around Sarah as she stood frozen. The vibrant glow that had once promised hope now flickered uncertainly, its warmth waning. The shadows advanced, eager to engulf her, taunting with their whispers that twisted like smoke. What should I do? She whispered, her voice barely breaking through the rising tide of sorrow that crashed around her. The child let out a soft whimper, pulling her closer. You have to remember, Mommy. Remember what you locked away. Sudden clarity surged through Sarah, piercing through the fog of fear. It was there, buried deep, a memory that she had tried to erase. Her past, fragmented yet potent, was clawing its way back, alive with old pain. Familiar faces flickered in her mind, like shadows playing tricks in the dark. She saw her sister laughing, vibrant, light spilling from her smile. But that laughter was soon choked by terror. The fire, the screams, all hushed to a haunting silence. The shadows reveled, a chorus of voices intertwining. Yes, yes, let it out. Embrace the truth you buried. The shadows feed on your silence. You have to face the fire, Mommy, the child pleaded, her small voice trembling. It's our only way out. With a flash of resolve, Sarah gritted her teeth. She felt the truth seep into her bones, a heavy burden. Moving forward, she forced the memories to the surface. I will not let you win. As she stepped away from the glowing figure, the shadows snarled in frustration, their ghastly forms trembling with rage. You can't escape the darkness. It's part of you. Sarah took a deep breath, glancing at the walls that seemed ready to swallow her whole. You are not my truth, she cried defiantly. You're the monsters I've feared. Almost instantly, the ground shifted beneath her, the walls creaking and groaning in protest. The shadows writhed, their faces contorting with fury. Was this what they feared? Exposure? The child tugged at her hand, and suddenly she felt the warmth seep back, bolstered by her conviction. We'll find our way, together. With renewed courage, she stepped into the center of the swirling chaos. The light flickered violently, illuminating the horrors woven into the fabric of her home. Each face twisted in silent agony began to scream, their pleas merging with the shadowy moans that clawed at the back of her mind. I remember, Sarah shouted, desperate to drown out the noise. I remember everything, and I will not let my past define us. The shadows recoiled, panic spreading among them like wildfire. The luminous figure began to shake, dimming as though it were losing its strength. No, don't challenge us. You'll regret it. But Sarah pressed on, pushing through the tide of anguish as she dug deeper into the crevices of her memory. She saw it all, the arguments, the blame, the guilt. They had been festering, rotting like old wood, and now she finally pried it open. The light surged again, pushing back against the dark, and Sarah could feel the energy shift. Faces that once seemed wretched began to transform. Help us, please, they chorused, their pleas filled with yearning instead of malice. Are you ready to let go? The child asked, her eyes wide and bright. It's time. Sarah took another breath, the weight of her fears pushing against her chest. But she felt the child's grip steady and reassuring. Was this the moment for healing, or an invitation to a deeper darkness? The walls trembled, and the room whispered one last time, choose, but beware the revelation. Some truths shatter more than just silence, with both confrontation and a thrill of terror in her heart. Sarah cried, I choose to remember, I choose to be free. And as the fabric of her reality shredded, she felt the cold fingers of doubt clawing at her, and the shadowy threat of the past looming ever closer. Would she escape the past, or would it consume them both? The moment Sarah shouted, the walls shuddered violently. Her heart raced as if echoing in the cavernous void around her, a relentless rhythm against the trembling structure. The shadows recoiled, swirling into an angry vortex, snarling and hissing like beasts sensing the approach of dawn. Don't you see? A low voice crooned, slippery and smooth, from the depths of the dark. Every secret you unearth sends ripples through time. You may choose to remember, but some memories are traps. A chill gripped her. The shadows coiled tighter, their tendrils brushing cruelly against her skin, whispering her doubts. Images of her sister, her laughter now tainted with despair, fluttered like broken wings in her mind. Each flicker illuminated new fears of abandonment, chaos, and the unforgiving truth they had suffered. Help us! The shadowy chorus grew louder, a maddening chant that echoed through her bones, demanding her attention, testing her resolve. You can't silence us. Enough, she shouted, feeling the child beside her squeeze her hand tightly. She swallowed hard, an icy lump forming in her throat. I won't be owned by this fear anymore. She focused on the light, feeling its warmth against her skin, every heartbeat a reminder of her determination. I choose to face you, Sarah cried, her voice rising above the cacophony. I'll uncover the truth, and I'll do it for her. The shadows shuddered as if struck, and suddenly, a blinding flash erupted, illuminating secrets woven into the darkness. Faces emerged, whispers of twisted memories flickered like static on a screen. Figures who had once been loved turned monstrous, morphing into grotesque reflections of a past she had tried to bury. Why did you forget us? One of the figures pleaded, eyes wide with anguish. It was her father, the warmth of his embrace replaced by the weight of his failures in her memory. We were caught in a fire of your making, Sarah, a fire you didn't extinguish. You left us behind. His voice echoed, resonant with grief. You can't escape. Panic surged within her, but she pressed on, refusing to back down. I couldn't take the pain. She could feel the room closing in, the shadows whispering her guilt. But I can face it. A bone-chilling howl erupted, and the shadows converged, thrashing against the remnants of the light. You fool! There are rules, there are costs. They screeched, twisting and writhing in a frenzy of rage. "No!" cried the child, her small voice piercing the turmoil. "Don't listen to them, Mommy. Please don't give in. We're stronger together." Sarah's breath quickened. The child's confidence wrapped around her like a lifeline. Was this the moment she could rewrite their fate? Was it too late for redemption? With renewed strength, she shouted every ounce of her heart into the chaos. "I'll face my past and set you free." The ground shook violently as the shadows twisted and reformed, every anguished scream around her becoming a siren song of both threat and promise. And then she felt it, a distant memory, her heart pounding a warning. What was it that she had left unexamined? There were whispers of a sinister truth lurking, deep, dangerous, and horrifying. "Remember," the mirror echoed through the storm, a gentle coaxing that sent terror lancing through her veins. The mirror. Images flashed of a cracked surface, her own face twisted in agony, secrets dancing just out of reach, things she'd buried too deep. The ground split beneath her, and she fell, clutching the child tightly as darkness yawned. Would she plunge into the unknown or grasp the flickering light? The swirling mass of shadows threatened to consume her, but a part of her yearned to dive deeper, to discover the mirror's truth. As they descended, she felt powerless against the ever-approaching dark. Could she truly confront the horrors hidden within the glass? Or would the truth shatter not just her frame of reference, but the very essence of their existence? The bottomless void welcomed them with open arms. With a gasp of trepidation, Sarah realized she was teetering on the edge of revelation. The mirror was calling, dark whispers mingling with memories, a chilling premonition of what was to come. The world around Sarah twisted as the shadows engulfed her and the child, a suffocating blackness that tasted like iron. She could feel the weight of darkness pressing down on her, squeezing breath from her lungs, blurring edges of reality. Her heart raced wildly, a wild drum echoing in the silence of the void. She pulled the child close, their warmth a small beacon against the cold. "Hold on tight," Sarah whispered, feeling her throat constrict. This is what she feared, this descent into hell. What awaited them below? She was teetering at the precipice of something monumental. A sudden jolt sent them crashing hard onto a cold, flat surface. The child cried out, and Sarah instinctively shielded her. They lay still, the weight of the shadows momentarily lift, but breaths came shallow and quick. "Mother?" The child's voice was small, quivering. "Where are we?" "I don't know," Sarah replied, trembling. "But we'll find out." Before she could get her bearings, a blinding light flashed through the air, banishing some darkness but revealing grotesque forms lurking in the corners. Familiar silhouettes, bent and twisted against the harsh glare which faded just as quickly. "No," Sarah gasped, recognizing her family's shapes. "They're here. They followed us. Mommy." "Please," the child whimpered, clutching her tightly. "Don't let them take me." The figures lingered just out of reach, their faces concealed in darkness, but the air hummed with agony and betrayal. "Sarah," they whispered in unison, voices layered with sorrow. "You cannot escape responsibility." "I'm not escaping," she shouted, rising to her feet. Fear turned into fury. "You don't understand. I was so afraid. I thought I was protecting you." A bitter laugh echoed, bouncing off the walls. "Protecting us? You let us burn. You locked it away." As realization hit, the images began to splinter, shifting, revealing moments of her past as if they were butterfly wings caught in a storm. She could see it now, the old mirror from her childhood, a frayed memory like a tattered map to a buried treasure. It had shattered, pieces laced with her unwritten fears. Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, pressing against her body. "Face the truth," they hissed. "Look into the mirror. You owe it to us." Her heart thudded against her ribcage, each beat louder than the last. She stumbled back against a wall, the solid boundary giving her a fleeting moment of comfort until she caught sight of her reflection. Broken shards, tiny fragments scattered among the darkness, each piece like a jigsaw puzzle of her soul. "Show me," she yelled, voice raw with desperation. "I want to see." With that, the shards began to shimmer, revealing flashes of her past, the day of the fire, rays of light flickering through chaos, her sister's face obscured. A pale eruption of flames, the sickening scent of smoke, and then nothing. "Sarah, please," came the whisper, an echo of her sister, haunting her with nostalgia. "You have to look again." Time spun, and the air thickened with despair as another sob emerged, raw and ragged. The child slipped from her grasp, falling to the ground. "Mommy, no!" Each shard expanded into cascading visions, memories washing over Sarah like a tidal wave, threatening to drown her. She couldn't breathe. Shadows loomed nearer, urging her to look deeper, each fragment pulling her in. "Mom, help!" The child's voice quaked through the darkness, an anchor that snapped Sarah from the spiraling abyss. "No, I'm coming!" she screamed, her heart racing as dread washed over her. But as she reached for her child, the shadows responded with fury, clawing at her, dragging her back into the whirlpool of revelations. Light or dark, they jeered, their voices merging into a confusion of sound. Which will you choose? What had she missed? What truth still lay just beyond her grasp in the depths of those shards? And could she face it without losing everything? The shadows laughed, bloodthirsty echoes rippling in the dark. Just then, an overwhelming light erupted from behind her, warm and blinding. Sarah turned, a heartbeat away from the truth, the flicker of hope. Battling against the might of her past, the light swallowed the shadows whole, but at what cost? As it closed in, she felt it a pulse beneath her feet, a heartbeat of the walls, and with it came the seductive promise to unearth whatever was hidden. Would she dare to discover the mirror's final secret, or would it consume her whole? Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she stared into the chaotic storm swirling around her. Shattered fragments of her past swirled like a cyclone, whispering her fears. The shadows, dark and alive, pushed against her as she fought for breath, desperately trying to reach her child, who was lost in the chaos. "Mommy!" The child's voice cut through the din, pulling Sarah back from the brink of despair. It ignited something inside her, a fierce resolve sparking against the immeasurable weight of darkness. She couldn't do this alone. She had to confront the past, not just for herself, but for her child, too. "Let her go," Sarah screamed. "You think you can keep us shackled forever? I will remember, no matter what it costs." Each word was a battle cry, pushing against the relentless shadows entwining her limbs. Her focus sharpened, the vibrant glow of the memory sparking a warmth deep within her. The shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned by her defiance. The wind howled around her, but the power of her voice was unstoppable. Images burst forth from the shards of the mirror. The laughter of her sister, the warmth of her family, all tainted by the storm of their tragic end. "I can't let fear win anymore," she proclaimed, her own voice ringing with strength that felt foreign yet exhilarating. A sickening laugh echoed, thin and cruel. "You'll regret this choice, child. The past wants you to kneel, and shadows demand their due." The walls trembled in response, the figures twisted in torment converging on her with a deafening roar. Yet, she remained standing, feet planted firmly. Behind her, she could sense the flickering form of her child, drawing courage from her resolve. Racing forward into the chaos, Sarah reached for the luminous figure, the heartbeat of hope pulsing brightly amid the shadows. "Trust me," she called, her voice cutting through the darkness like a blade. "Together we can rewrite the story." The figure trembled, then surged forward, clasping Sarah's hand tightly. Bolstered by the bond of love, a shield formed around them, a brilliant aura shielding them from the shadows that lunged and grasped like demons desperate to claim their souls. The air hummed, vibrating with the power of shared memories, and for the first time, she could break the twisted narrative. "Step into the light," she urged. "Shatter the past and find truth." With a fierce burst of determination, they plunged into the source of the warmth that now wrapped around them like a cocoon. In an instant, the world shifted. Sarah felt the house dissolve around her, creeping shadows retreating as everything brightened. Light poured in, filling the black void with hues of golden warmth, and the oppressive grip on her throat fell away, the shadows retreating with angry wails as vision adjusted. Sarah blinked hard. They stood surrounded by shifting imagery, visions and echoes of laughter spinning around them. Images of her sister flickered in the light, vibrant and whole. "Find peace, Sarah," she whispered, ethereal but strong. Her sister's spirit shimmered, eyes filled with love and understanding. "Let go of the blame," she urged gently, "and let the light embrace you." An overwhelming sensation of love flooded Sarah as the memories intertwined. The warmth suffused her heart, kindling a flame she thought long extinguished. "I miss you," Sarah gasped, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I thought I had to forget you to escape the pain. But I won't let darkness take us. I'll fight for everyone we lost." The regret, the sorrow transformed into love, woven back into her spirit, felt re-energized and alive without the suffocating weight of guilt. And suddenly, clarity struck her. The prison of shadow dissolved like mist under sunlight, its hold suddenly broken. "Time to reclaim our story," Sarah shouted. In that moment of realization, they flew forward, weaving through memories, hearts bound by love unbroken. "We'll make it beautiful again," she cried, watching as the broken shards began to shimmer and reform, emerging with renewed vibrancy as laughter rippled around them. With a final push, they burst through the veil, spilling into light that enveloped them in warmth. The energy surged, breathing life back into the past, filling the empty spaces with joy. Sarah opened her eyes slowly, seeing her children sleeping peacefully in their beds, unaware of the darkness that had once loomed so close. A calmness settled in her heart. The house felt renewed, walls vibrant with hope instead of despair. "I promise to keep you safe," she whispered, brushing a gentle hand against her children's hair. "We'll create new memories together." She turned, and for the first time in ages, sunlight streamed through the windows, flooding the rooms with warmth and laughter. The haunting whispers faded, but their lessons remained: strength in love, courage in facing the truth. Sarah felt free, and as the shadows dimmed, she knew they were finally at peace together, on her own terms. Don't forget this story. If you made it this far, you need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss more exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and reveal even more thrilling tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Your support means everything. Be part of our journey.